All right, filming with David for some AFA. Oh, hey, James, what's going on?
Hey, man.
He said that we were.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works. My name is David, DCM, creative director, lead writer, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Ben.
I feel betrayed, David.
In what way?
We're going to talk about this after.
I don't think that we should talk about this after this. I feel like this should be something
to our
that
therapist, and we're gonna have a deep emotional discussion.
we can't
about
afford
what
a
just happened.
therapist. We can't afford to go again, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. This week, Ben, this is a Patreon requested episode. This is from Jordan C. And he said, guys, now that the rest of American Gods is out, so 8 episodes at the time of recording.
Not all of it. Yeah,
He was like,
so
what do you
episode eight.
think? I'd love to hear your thoughts now that the show's kind of progressed a bit.
At least I hope episode 8 isn't the last episode.
I hope not,
Bit of
because
a
there's a bit of a cliffhanger. And he sort of was talking about how, like there were some elements to it that kind of wrapped up a little bit, gave you some more context. So I
Yeah.
thought that we would talk about the world building of American Gods. So I guess to start with, I want to kind of state a few obvious things about the show that I think requires covering before we move into some of the more complex stuff.
Shoot him off.
The thing they do that a lot of other shows don't do that I think is quite brave in some ways is they hit you with a lot of very complex ideas initially, where they're like, here are these discrete vignettes throughout the start of the show,
Right.
and they expect you to work out the context.
Yeah, and they even just throw you into situations that make no sense. Even towards the end of the season, they sort of never
Some of it's never
really fully
explained.
explain them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just you're sort of meant to take it as Shadow's perspective.
Right,
So you
'cause
get
he's
a lot
very
of,
confused.
Yeah, so you get a lot of that, like, he gets lynched, and you're like, oh, that's good, and then he
Don't
gets
know why.
saved, and you're like, that's probably good.
Right.
And then, there's all these weird situations where you're like, why is that guy vaping a frog?
So do you think that serves with the way that... Why is he vaping a frog?
Why is he
We'll never
vaping
know.
a frog?
Techno Boy. But I guess,
Yeah.
like, for someone coming into it fresh, did you find that gave you a much more realistic... realistic's the wrong word, but like...
Yeah, it
a
is
much
the wrong one.
it's like you get a very clear perspective of Shadow because you don't get blanks filled in. You only find out information when he does. And then on top of that, you're added additional non-contextual vignettes that he doesn't see.
Yeah.
So you get the story of the girl and the leprechaun. You get the initial episode. It opens with Zeus
the
and his
god of-
idol.
Yeah.
Which if you didn't realize at home, that opening shot is with the Vikings. That's about Zeus and his idol coming to America.
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice little subtle
vaguely.
thing.
Yeah.
But that coyness kind of forces you to pay attention. And I think that's kind of like, not a lot of writers would be like, that's a good idea for a TV show.
Yeah, even like everything is just like held off until even like the episode 8, which we got up to, which feels like the really turning point for the season. I feel like there's like 2 episodes left. Probably
It's getting very like,
it's
there's
getting like
something's gonna happen.
it's point. It's the first it's the first shot fired.
as
before
always with
the
these
big fight.
spoilers,
Spoilers.
for the show. So if
It's
you
all
haven't
right,
watched
no
it,
one dies.
yeah, they do. He straight up fucking murks a god.
No one important dies.
He straight up murks a god at the end. That's how you know shit's getting real. He,
Yeah.
Zeus kills the guy with the weird face.
Is it Zeus?
Yeah, Mr. Wednesday, Zeus.
I thought he was Odin.
Odin. I know with the gods, it's Odin. It's definitely not Zeus. Are they different? Probably.
I'm gonna go.
I've written-
I'm gonna go with yes. Final answer.
I've written Zeus in my notes every time.
Well,
It's
yes,
definitely Odin.
Definitely Odin.
That's
he
neither
pronou-
here nor there.
Let's
It's
continue.
definitely here. It's not there.
Yeah, Vikings wouldn't. Yeah, anyway.
Shut
let's
up. It's
continue.
not important. But yeah, so I guess that was the main thing that I was interested in with this concept of this world, because the books are similar. The book is similar in the way that it treats
I have
the
not
stuff.
read the book because I do not read books.
Well, I think that
but
that's-
I will probably read the book. Who is it?
Neil Gaiman.
I was about to say Garth Nix.
Garth
It's the
Nix?
other one.
The
the Seven
the
Towers,
moderately
isn't it?
talented young adult fiction writer.
Yeah, I read some of his books.
Versus Neil Gaiman, one of the biggest award-winning writers of our time,
To me, they're all the same.
and potentially the next great American novelist
Look,
if Stephen King
you know,
dies soon.
Stephen King, the kid who wrote Aragon. It's nor here nor there.
The kid who wrote Aragon.
He was like 16. When
he was
wrote
pretty
it.
young, and
Yeah.
it shows. I didn't mean to fire shots at Aragon, but I guess, to me it's interesting that they took a concept of a book that is quite... complex is the wrong word. There's a lot of density to the concepts.
There's a lot behind. There's even in the show that you can tell there's a lot underneath the surface that they're kind of just holding off, and they kind of give you inklings of how big how big the sort of the universe I guess is, with sort of how broad everything is. It's not just Wednesday is Odin and this guy is Thor and this guy is the Loki of
Yeah, it's not a Marvel thing where they give you the big beats straight up front.
Yeah, it's like this guy is, we don't know, his name's Mr. Wednesday. This lady gets big when she has sex with people. That was an eye opener.
It's Buckwild.
And it's like, and this guy's a leprechaun. You're like, cool.
He was a great character for so many reasons.
Oh my fucking god, he's a good character. I didn't like him at the start because I was like, I thought it was kind of.
I mean, no characters in the show are likable.
No, but like I didn't like him from the perspective of like, okay, he's a leprechaun, haha.
And he was a prick.
Yeah, I felt like that was just easy because he's Irish. But Irish.
Where do you think leprechauns are from, buddy?
Scotland.
Yeah, they're not. They're from Ireland.
Oh, they are Ireland? Dude, I mixed them up a lot.
There's a whole half episode that's set in Ireland.
Look, they look the same to me.
The people are the countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue with
Yes
the
is the answer.
Yes. Yeah, like that arc where he sort of gets explained is literally his turning point.
And did you feel like for him, because you don't know exactly what his powers are,
Well, he's a leprechaun.
but like you don't know what he can do. All you know is that he can't really die and that he has unlimited gold, maybe.
And whenever he doesn't have his lucky coin, bad shit just keeps happening to him.
Yeah, so it's like you don't really know if he has like a specific skill set, and that's the same with a lot of the other characters. And I think that's why you never go, okay, I know how this encounter is going to go, because at no point do you go, I know what Mr. Wednesday's powers are, or I know what the lady in the TV can do. And it's this kind of thing where you're in Shadow's position where he's just this guy thrown in the middle of it, having to try and sort out.
You don't even know
what's a
like
reasonable
why
thing.
he was chosen, but like everyone just kind of comes around and acts. He's almost like a weird messiah for all of the characters.
Yeah,
like he's not a not a messiah. He's like a weird disciple. Like he's not important. He's not special. He's literally following around the god. He's just this weird like. Yeah, he's got like those disciple-esque elements where everyone knows
very much
him
so,
because he's always with
he's
the
very
big honcho.
He's very old.
Yeah, and
that character.
people still respect him as like a mortal because he is. Yeah. So, but at the same time, there's this because of his association. They're all just like,
Right.
Yeah, don't fuck with that guy.
Is it? And do you think it's such that with the because the character of Shadow Moon, the whole way through the show, he starts off very not sympathetic, but you kind of can associate with him very readily, right? Because his wife dies. He's
a very blank slate early on.
There's not a lot happening.
Yeah.
Whereas later on, there's definitely like his personality starts to come out. You realize that he's this hustler. He's kind of charming. He's kind of a bit of a douchebag.
Yeah, he's a bit dumb.
And then you learn about
places.
his relationship with Laura, and she's kind of an asshole, and she's got these suicidal tendencies. And there's all these things going on about these characters. But at the start, Shadow is just like an empty slate. So the world building like colors his character as much as the different things he does.
Yeah, you learn about who he is through his reactions to things.
Exactly, and that's such a refreshing thing instead of sitting down at the start and going, okay, boys and girls, this is how Shadow Moon came to be here.
Yeah, he's not presented as like just beef. He's not just pure beef, even though everyone else sees him as just the pure beef that's following this.
Yeah, just the protection from humans.
He reacts to situations with like curiosity and like, I'm gonna gauge this out. I'm not gonna just punch my way through it. Like especially when he's when shit starts sort of hitting the fan, when he meets Laura, who is now, I guess, undead.
Yeah, she's not dead. She's not undead. She's just not dead. Yeah. Well, she's dead.
Yeah, he doesn't, any other character would sort of, or any lazy character would sort of be like, there's two reactions. There's like the freak out and like, run away or punch reaction. Right. And then there's the, oh god, I'm so glad you're back, I'm gonna bone your body reaction. And his reaction is that of like, I'm just gonna see what happens.
He's like
apparently things just happen to me. And that's like a big thing later on where he's just like, things have just been happening.
And do you feel that I mean, this is just the way that I kind of think about it, and maybe this is just like the narrative person in me speaking, but I like the way that his the elements of his character that come out later on. So like, when Laura does come back, there is this real sense of you don't really get he's not pleased to see her. He's not like, oh, thank God she's back. He's like,
because he's
like, what's going on? And is this a good thing?
Yeah, because it's weird because up until that point, you get a lot of his story, and you get like the touches of Laura's story, like sort of her being a sleep around, and then you get her arc sort of in between the reveal, which was a weird episode for me because that was when I stopped watching.
Yeah, that was when we both came back into it.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh wait, yeah, this happened. like an episode later.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that, you sort of get her entire redemption arc in that episode.
Yeah.
You get, you know...
You do, yeah.
You get the origin, you get her downfall, and you get her redemption in one episode. So when it comes back to Shadow, which was especially weird because, again, there was like a huge break in time.
You also see the
between we
same
watched
shot
these.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah, you see the same shot of him coming in, and gauging his reaction, he doesn't react the way if he had watched the episode that you just watched, he would react differently.
Yes, but because he's still the same person.
Because he's
he was
the
at the
same
start.
character, he reacts in a certain way. So it's like it's an interesting thing where they're really able to just kind of like slot that episode in, even though if it was any other show, it'd be called filler.
But this one, it's
Kind of necessary to gauge.
No,
her
that's exactly
reaction.
what it's the penultimate contextualization for that moment. But any other show, I think a lot of other shows would fall into the tendency and the trap of being like, okay, this happened, so this is occurring right now. So let's tell this whole backstory, and then let's have Shadow react differently to the Shadow that walked in the room.
Yeah, and
because the viewer knows that information.
Especially when you see the reveal from Shadow's perspective first, her sort of mannerisms and the way she says like hi, it's weird, it's unnerving because she's like really happy. She's not like happy to see him, but she's really like cheery as if he had just come home from work.
Yeah.
And that puts you on edge because you're like, you're meant to be dead? And it puts Shadow on edge because he's like, you're meant to be dead.
Right.
But when you get that contextualization, you're like, yeah, like she's nervous, and because she has, that weird fucking eye thing she's got going on is janky as hell. So it's like...
She's a creepy looking character.
Yeah, but
she'll stitch the fuck up and everything.
You sort of see her process of getting there, you're like, yeah, there's really no other way you could act in that situation
especially
as her.
Given she'd been stalking him for a few days.
Yeah,
saved him
like
from the
you're not
lynching,
going to be like, oh, it's so nice to see you. You would be a bit reserved because
you'd be like,
you're
what?
dead.
Also,
you wouldn't want to be too reserved because then you'll think you're just some weird zombie thing,
and then
you
like,
might go for the punch option, and you don't want that.
Yeah,
because you're already dead.
It's a tricky thing to solve in a story that isn't about his wife.
Yeah,
like that. That's the thing.
Yeah, to give her a whole episode.
The story's not about Laura. The story's about Shadow and Mr. Wednesday. But the really cool thing is in that last episode that we've seen, so episode 8, you find out that Mr. Wednesday was the one that had killed Laura.
Yeah.
So, then it's the question of, well, what does Mr. Wednesday need from Shadow that he can't get anywhere else?
Well, that last episode really gives a lot of information about the world as a whole. I'm glad we got to it before we did this episode.
It pulls the trigger on everything that's been set up, and it goes, those vignettes all tied together in this really clever way.
Yeah, so it pulls into the idea of gods exist because people believe in them. That's like the conceit of the world. Spoiler alert.
Which that only lands properly in that episode.
Yeah.
It's hinted at.
It's hinted at.
It's the first time someone says it, though.
Yeah, it's hinted at with the vignette of the sort of stop motion animation one with the people who are like moving to a new land, and they're like, they left their god and the god died, and you're like, okay, it's kind of hidden in the sense that when you stop believing in the god disappears, and then they just force it in your face with the 12 Jesus.
Yeah,
joke.
but that's a difference. So that's like a hint of like when you stop being believed in, you die. But to say that if enough people believe it gets created, that's what the Jesus thing is. So when there's 12 Jesuses,
all different nationalities.
Jesus.
Jesus.
What's the plural of Jesus? Jesus.
Jesupodes.
Jesupones. When there's those Jesus really give you the context you need to be like, okay, that's how they're created.
You're like, okay, there's multiple Jesuses because it's
right.
Christianity there's multiple Christianity sort of
followers. And then that was the first moment where I was like, oh, I understand why the war's happening. It's because all of these gods are desperate not to be forgotten because they don't want to die.
Yeah.
And then you go,
what do you think the war is between? Because I have a pretty good idea. I have a pretty good grasp of where it's going and where it's been.
Well, why don't you tell me? Because I've read the book.
Oh. Yeah, I'll do it then, because you fucking know.
Don't be like that. Don't be a sourpuss.
Is it sort of just like a commentary on sort of old gods versus new technology? So people believing in like the internet. So like Mr. World is basically the internet.
I think
and his subsidies are like media, like new wave, like culturalism with the kid who vapes a frog.
That's kind of, well, I think more
of like the Bowie character who's basically sort of like a weird nostalgic hold on like the old times that people have, like, because of the internet.
But they never lived that, so it's mutated.
It's a really like obvious sort of caricature.
Yep.
The lynching. I don't know, is that the alt-right?
Well, it's funny you say that. Like, no, that's the right lines. But I think the thrust of that conceit is that all of these new gods are fine. They do what they need to do, and they come with this. They come with similar pitfalls to what the old gods had, right? So the old gods would sacrifice lives, and that would keep the faith. These ones sacrifice other stuff. So they sacrifice attention. They sacrifice social experiences. They
Right.
sacrifice freedom. All those things for their belief.
So, Mr. World, he's got to be the internet, right?
I don't think it matters. That's
Well,
that's
'cause
the
I
thing,
think
right?
What's the TV lady? That's definitely a belief in characters and in TV
In
personalities.
TV, and because she's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So she's been on TV since TV
So
started.
people believe that her like off-screen persona is the same
the
as her
same.
on-screen. So her
Exactly.
on-screen persona becomes personified.
That is exactly that concept. No, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is, and that to me is so clever because what Neil Gaiman gives you is he goes, instead of what every writer does, which I think is a tendency, you go, here's a mirror to society, and here's why what you're doing is dumb.
Right.
Neil Gaiman's like, here's how it is, and don't worry about it. Like either way, he's like, if you
chill.
he's like both sides are wrong and right in their own way, right?
Yeah.
So like if you look at Odin's perspective, got it right, almost said this again. If you look at Odin's perspective, he's very much like we need to sacrifice lives. We need to have this famine to get belief back in my kind of god.
We need to start forcing
And
people.
it's like, is that worse than people permanently becoming, slaves to Mr. World, these faceless creatures that follow him around at the end of that
Yeah.
episode? Is that worse? Is a Half-Life better than, killing a bunch of people and then everyone else living properly? And it's that kind of conflict between that old belief and that new belief that the show really focuses on. And I don't think it hits its stride with that until Odin beheads Vulcan.
Spoiler alerts.
Yeah, Odin beheads Vulcan with a sword that Vulcan forged.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's in, yeah.
And that is metal as hell. That
Oh,
moment.
I mean, that's a fucking...
He just beheads a dude. Like
I
it
think,
just
yeah,
comes out
that
of
whole
left
that
field.
whole sequence is really interesting because it's like, I mean, the bullets going, like, them shoot... That whole, like, Americana...
Yeah.
nationalistic
And that
scene
belief
is just
in-
so funny.
And it's way too close to home. And the way that
Well, that was like, yeah, he was like, they believe in America. Like, their god is just
their god is the
America.
country.
Yeah.
And that's
which
such
is-
a clever concept, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think about like the way that other people are beholden to religious beliefs, people with patriotism
With the,
are beholden to the same kind of stringent rules, right?
would the god of Australia just be like a walking can of Forex?
Well, I don't think that. I think that that's the thing, right? There probably wouldn't be one big god in Australia because the patriotism in
Yeah.
Australia died
Yeah,
after
true.
the kind of Anzac myth was realized to just be a myth, right?
Yeah.
So it's this kind of complicated thing in Australia where there's no defining thing. There'd be a bunch of them. There'd be like your alt-right kind of old school Australian. Put the boats back.
Well, I think
get rid of them.
if you like, what's his name? The rash kid who vapes a frog.
Techno Boy.
Technoboy. I almost feel like he's a representation of what older people think younger people are like.
That's what they think Gen Z is,
Yeah.
which is how I think of Gen Z.
Yeah, which is absolutely 100% like accurate. They're
whether-
going to be
yeah,
vaping
that-
frogs in a year. Like
That's
watch
how
this
we
space.
that's how we think of
Frog
them.
vapes.
Whether or not they're like that, that's how
Is
we
it
think
a
of
frog?
them. Right?
It's like a weird.
He does a frog at one point. He does. I
He's definitely vaping.
think he does a CD at one point. There's like a crushed up CD in it.
Yeah, he's vaping things.
There's maybe a floppy disk.
He's just vaping. Oh, he wouldn't know what a floppy disk is.
He
The
would.
old people would.
But that's how the culture views, like that's how it would manifest, right? Because
Yeah.
it lacks the nuance that you need to understand what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what the old gods have. They have nuance. You have Mr. Wednesday who he's not just a god of weather. Odin is a god of a bunch of things. He has a day of the week.
he's a top boy.
The new gods are like
top god.
The new gods are based on a concept,
They're segmented,
and a
yeah.
construct,
Right.
and it's very much that discrete embodiment of an idea. And I think that's why when you put the world building together and you suddenly realize the divide, it's not about whether or not you're a new or an old god. It's about if you can evolve to match the discrete conceptualization of religion into things, right? So it's like, can
Yeah.
you put yourself in a fucking pigeonhole and be like a podcast or
Like-
be a Twitter? Like, can you find the niche and the groove that you need?
I think one of the cool things, and I sort of thought about this before, when you sort of compare the gods, so you have Mr. Wednesday and you have Mr. World. Even if you just deconstruct those pseudonyms, you get this weird and like interesting idea where Mr. World, he's clearly kind of like trying to make himself encapsulate everything. He wants to like run the world. He's Mr. World.
To the point where he has 3 heads when he blurs his face.
Yeah. So like he's like I want to represent everything. And then you have Mr. Wednesday, who's just a dude. it's
he's-
every now and then it's Wednesday.
And he's happy to have his day.
Yeah, but it's the interesting thing where if you get a little bit like philosophical, Wednesday relies on people. Like Wednesday relies on human beings to say it is Wednesday today, but as long as there are people, Wednesday is forever, because there will always be a Wednesday. Once a week, it's his day.
Yeah.
Mr. World, though, that relies on that doesn't just rely on humans. That relies on everyone literally maintaining the world to keep it existing.
That is the...
Because there's
Yeah.
So, like, Mr.
Holy
World has
shit.
this requirement for everything. Like, everyone must believe in him because he's Mr. World. Whereas Mr. Wednesday, some dude down the road can just be like, it's Wednesday today, and he'll still exist.
You just fucking blew my mind.
So, it's Mr.
Holy
World
crap.
So, Mr. World
Yeah.
is everything. Mr. Wednesday is forever.
Fucking hell. You blew my fucking mind,
Did-
dude. That's
did a thing.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so clever.
Yeah, so, and
Yeah, yeah.
and in his opening, when he's like, what day is it today? And Shadow's like, Wednesday. He's
my
like,
day.
it's my day.
And I gotta say, that... Wow. Fuck.
And he doesn't have
yeah.
to, he's not like, I'm Odin, because...
And he is also
not
not
gonna
like...
do that.
He's not like, I own Wednesday. He's like, it's just my day.
Yeah,
You know?
it's my day today.
He's
I'm
very
Wednesday.
nonchalant.
And
And-
everyone knows him as Mr. Wednesday because it's always been Wednesday. It's always a Wednesday.
And do you feel like that... Fuck. I'm just still reeling. That is so crazy to me that I didn't realize that.
yeah, it's a weird... Especially because it's Mr. Wednesday and Mr. World. Like, they have parallels.
And that's why he's so coy about who he is, because to him
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
it's
matter
about...
because it's just once a week.
Because he's always going to keep trucking along.
He's always going to be there.
But suddenly he's threatened by these concepts that want to soak up everything. And that's why he has to
Yeah.
fight back. And it's that overwhelming tide of trying to soak up the little guys.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Neil Gaiman is trying to say that technology is like inherently bad, right? Like he's on Twitter.
Well, it's a
Fine.
weird thing where if you consider Mr. World, like, the world can exist without people, yet his downfall was a construction of people.
Well, yeah, relying on people to construct his...
Yeah, so Mr.
concept.
Wednesday, which does rely on people to sort of maintain today's Wednesday, Mr. Wednesday killed Mr. World.
So there's a belief...
So there's this idea that the construction of people sort of prevails over sort of an attempt to control
Well, yeah,
all of
so
the people.
I don't think it's construction. I think it's that Mr. Wednesday believed that people would carry on and succeed,
Yeah,
whereas
he put-
Mr. World wanted to become dominant over
Yeah,
that.
Mr. Wednesday put faith in the people to always have a
Yeah,
Wednesday.
and that's why he brings Shadow with him, is because he needs to remind himself of the people that that give him, his place in the world and his power and his
Yeah.
his ability to exist.
And he never just tells Shadow what's happening. He always waits for Shadow to not ask,
But to gather.
Yeah, to gather. Like, there's no point where Mr. Wednesday breaks it down.
And the
Even
only
when- even in
the
the-
only point
even
when
in
he does is
episode 8.
at the very end, but even then, Shadow has to get there first.
Well, no, even then, he's like, he pronounces it as the old. He says like Ojil.
He has a bunch of names. He has like a bunch of names.
But at the end, he's just like he's like, I'm Ojil, and Shadow's like, Odin, and he's like, yeah, Ojil.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's not. It's just like, look, I know you understand, but like, yes, it's what I actually
exactly.
am. Yeah, it's this weird. It's.
He's like, that's
thought
the
that
word
was
you have
interesting.
for it, but that's not the word that I have for
Yeah,
it.
like, sure, you believe now, but
Right.
here's what these other people believe.
I guess to me then, really the thrust of why the world building works so well then is that the conceits of these different, and we'll chunk them and we'll say old gods versus new gods, even
Yeah.
though it's more about what category you fall into.
Right.
Those concepts are chunked so nicely that when you get those vignettes at the start that then start to thread throughout and you start to go, okay, I understand a bit about how this is happening. I get some of these overriding concepts. Instead of what a show like Game of Thrones does, which is go, here's a bunch of characters, you don't know how they're going to relate to each other, and then slowly over time, they start to have more and more to do with each other.
Yeah, Game of Thrones will do things like, here's the rules, whereas American Gods will be like, this guy's looking for a djinn because he's Muslim.
They go, here's
that's part of his belief system.
they go, here's the people, and then everything evolves from that. So
Also,
I just,
shout outs to that gay sex scene. I was watching it at uni.
the one with
That was a
the
weird
gin.
one. There were a lot of penises.
There was a lot of butts and dicks. That was like a 4-minute gay sex scene.
Yeah, I got halfway through and then went, I should probably skip this.
I thought you were going to say, I got hard, and I'm like, that's fine, keep that to yourself. It was really long. It was really long.
Very long gay sex scene.
And, like, there's no straight sex scenes throughout the whole thing that are that long.
You see boobs, but that's about it.
There's a lot of naked people. You see a lot of dick. You see a lot of dead people dick.
You s-
A lot of dead man dick.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, yeah.
But again, it serves the story to have that. I wanted to talk about
Yeah, a lot of old gods were just kind of naked.
no woggers hanging out.
I think Mr. Wednesday is just a little bit more refined.
He's a very
He
refined
wears
gentleman.
he wears a nice coat.
He's a bloody good chap.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to and kind of tie it together is how those storytelling things where they have like the vignettes written by Jackal and the Anubis guy. I can't pronounce it properly. It's Jackal and
Anubis guy?
the guy in the morgue. The guys in the morgue.
Right.
It's Jackal and
So, death.
yeah, what's death and then the guy who records life.
Yeah.
That was really cool because it wasn't until he sits down with his ale to write his story that you go, oh, all those stories he told us were him recording people's lives from history as stories
Yeah.
and retelling these stories. And I had a moment where I was like, oh, that's so cool because what he's doing is he's showing you how the myths are formed and destroyed
Yeah.
so that you can understand as the series progresses how gods come to be and how they come to get out of the
Yeah.
world without someone sitting down and going, listen, when someone stops believing a god dies, right? Like they don't do that. They're like,
Yeah.
they give you that really nice, smooth transition between your initial understanding of these vignettes and then your conceptual understanding of the world.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we talked about this with the Darkest Dungeon episode that we did, but I think when you can integrate your world building into the way that you tell a story and it feels like it should be that way, like sometimes they do it and it feels very ham-fisted.
Yeah. Well, I think the show pulls it off partly through consistency.
Yep.
Also, like, I didn't even really notice that it's the start of every episode because some of them aren't sort of like old tales. Some of them are sort of current
Contemporary.
happenings.
Yeah.
That sort of thread into the stories later on.
Like the sex god or the leprechaun or whatever it is.
Yeah, or the taxi driver.
Taxi driver, the star lady from the Russian house on top of the house.
Yeah, she's an odd one.
That was a weird episode. It was like episode 2, and they just go buck wild on that.
Bonkers episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was a god of death as well, right? But he was a different god of death from a different culture.
That was the interesting
I
thing.
thought that was so cool.
You get all these different like intertwining. Yeah, I think at the point where it introduced the Jinn, I was just like, oh, I kind of see where they're going. I see that they're pulling this idea that yes.
What if
like,
everyone's
like
right?
what religion is what religion is the true one? You're like, yep.
Actually, speaking of that, I want people to know this because I think it's really important culturally.
Sure.
The Logic's new album, he's a rapper. He's got a new.
This is a very woo tangent.
No. This is about this. Logic actually, his new album is a conceptual album about that idea, about what if every religion is correct.
Yeah.
That's what the whole album's about. So if you were like curious as to how this concept might manifest in like a more realistic way, go listen to that. It's really interesting. But I just think that's shout outs Logic. He doesn't need my help. He's doing very well.
No.
He's like top 10 rappers at the moment. But I guess to me that concept of exploring like what if everyone's a little bit correct, like that's fine. I love that idea.
Well, it's like what if enough people are correct? Then you're right.
And that's true of a lot of stuff. Where if enough people believe it, it can kind of start to be like.
Well, that's how
with a lot of concepts.
That's how the new gods exist in this.
Yeah, and that's how religion started, right? Like enough people believe that they were like, okay, I guess this happened. And that decision, what if there was a world where when that happened, it literally happened? Like if you were like, Jesus came back from the dead and walked on water, what if you lived in a world where then a character is able to exist that can actually do that and was that? And then what is history if not an amalgamation of people's beliefs about what happened? And the combination of myths that they construct together to form a narrative, which is what history is in the first place.
How good was Mexican Jesus?
He was pretty cool.
Oh,
There was a lot
man.
of very cool Jesus.
The most that's the biggest portrayal
Jesus
of the whole series. Mexican Jesus getting shot down.
I liked
That fucking opening.
I liked
bro.
when Jesus
Look,
was in the pool and he dropped the glass. That was quite good. I thought that was very drunk Jesus
like, "Damn
sitting on
it."
water and he's like, damn it. Very fun. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is a show that proves, and we talked about the imagery in our last episode. It's worth going listening to.
The imagery only gets better. Like you
Yeah,
get
it's such
you
a beautiful
You get
show.
so much like shots and so much like metaphorical. Like going back to that Mexican Jesus, how it's they're crossing the river and then I assume Americans, rednecks, are
Yeah.
shooting them. He has the
Well, it's Border
engraving.
Patrol.
He has the he has the engraving, some Bible sort of verse. I forget what it is off the
Yep.
top of my head. And it's like, yeah, that's Christians killing Christians.
Yep.
But
they both believe in the same thing.
Yeah, they both believe in the same thing, but different versions. So there's Mexican Jesus and there's
Yeah.
white Jesus.
And then literally the white people are killing the Mexican Jesus on behalf of white Jesus.
Yeah.
Even though they're the same character.
Yeah, and it's like
crazy.
Oh,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But no, I don't know. I think it's one of the best shot and conceived shows on TV at the moment.
it handles belief in such a really interesting and cool way.
And to a level of nuance that only would come from a writer like Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, it doesn't ham-fist anything. It all feels legitimate.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good place to end. So do you have any recommendations for this week? What have you been catching?
Shit.
You never prepare these, but we do it every week.
I know. Why I don't have a life. I don't know. Episode 3 Rick and Morty. Pickle Rick.
Pickle Rick? Shit. What have I been doing?
Did I steal yours?
No, it wasn't
That's
going to
good.
be that, but now that's all I can think of. You kind of ruined... I had all the stuff, but now all I can think of is how good Rick and Morty is.
Yeah.
Do I have anything? What have I been doing? What have I been listening to? Shit. I've already
I
said...
started playing Oblivion again.
Yeah, you started playing
Go play
Oblivion
Oblivion.
again.
It's a good game.
I'm still playing Darkest Dungeon like I have a fucking drug habit.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
Splatoon
good.
2, actually. I haven't mentioned that. Get on that shit.
Fuck Nintendo.
Fucking... It's fresh as fuck.
I don't like that.
Marina is the best girl.
I'm not gonna fucking honor that with a response.
Alright.
So do the thing where you end the show, Ben.
Where
can people find us?
I was gonna like slam the mic into my mouth, but I can't.
like, meh.
Facebook.
DCMworks Social.
YouTube.
YouTube.com/DCMworks.
Twitter.
Did you forget what they were?
forgot
You have
what
one fucking job.
I was thinking Patreon. I was like, no, that's
Twitter's
last.
at DCM_works.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. If you want to suggest a topic like Jordan did and force
For
us...
open to suggestion as well. For open to suggestions. On open.
I'm sorry, was I in the middle of a goddamn sentence, or was I not? So rude. No respect around here is what I feel.
I mean,
I get it. It's fine.
we got problems.
Yeah, if you want to suggest a topic for us, $3 plus patrons can request an AFA episode.
only $3 plus. Exactly $3.
If you, no, they can donate more than $3. They can still do it.
Only $3.
They can still do more. If they donate $1,000, they can still suggest a topic.
You can suggest like 333.3 topics if you do that.
I think you should probably stop pitching. Just about Patreon in general, but also, yeah. So if you do that, you get access to Open to Suggestion, our Patreon only show, which is kind of evolving into the series where we read each
Just
other's spooky
read
stories.
Yeah.
And it's really fun and interesting and different.
It's a good time.
It's very different to this. It's very low key.
It's very chill.
I'm having a lot of fun with editing those.
It's
I've got to
good.
be honest. So
It's good. I'm
check
glad
that
you're
out.
enjoying them.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying them.
They're very
You
fun.
guys should enjoy them too.
If you donate $3 more on Patreon, you can enjoy them. I was going to say for free.
$3.
That's not how money works.
If you give us $3, you get it for free.
That's right. But as always, I'm at DC at my hip pie.
I'm at Literal Citrus.
I will see you guys next week.
Know that you would be here.
Do you want to do? Yeah, we'll just keep doing it.
It was probably a song that reminded me of it, or I'd done an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Writing is definitely an isolating thing.
From an outside perspective, that's weird as
It makes
fuck.
us look really mental.
But that is
because of what it kind of said about art.
I had fun in bits. There were fun bits.
we went and bought a value pack of straps.
Oh my god, we did. There's a big lesson here to learn about storytelling.